Good afternoon. In Brian's talk, he said something very interesting. And what he said was that it's not about technology. You know, we're all talking about disruption and we're talking about digital, but he said it's not about technology. And the other thing that Brian said during his talk, which really struck me, was he said it's not about capital. It's not about money. We have enough money. Do you remember what he said it was about? Do you remember what he said? He said it's about creative minds. And what he meant by that is that it's about you. So can you please raise your hand in this room if you think, and not just in this room, by the way, because we're in several rooms across the Nordics. Can you please raise your hand if you think you've got a creative mind? Maybe, oh, okay, maybe half. Okay. So what you're going to experience in the next 30 minutes is probably going to be the best 30 minutes of your life. Because if you think you've already got a creative mind, after the next 30 minutes, you're going to have an even more creative mind. And if you think you don't have a creative mind, well, what we're about to do is actually reactivate your creative potential. How does that sound? Are you shivering now with anticipation across the Nordics? You know, I'm like an Australian Moses, you know, coming down from the mountain, and I've got this tablet that I'm going to show it to you. Now, what the next half an hour is going to be about is interaction. So can you please take that piece of paper across the Nordics, a piece of paper and pencil. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do now. I would like everyone across all of our 4 locations to start filling out those circles for me. So I want you to fill up every single circle on that piece of paper. Your time starts now. Go. Please start writing. Please start drawing. Please start doing whatever you need to do. Fill up the circles. Come on, Tim Voss, let's start, please. Good. Let's go. There we go. TV2 in the front row. Trig, have you finished? You finished. Please raise your hand if you've already finished. Wow. 1/3 of the people already finished. So the rest of you, please continue. Who's finished on this side of the room? Good, okay, good. Please keep going. Who's finished over here? Good show of hands. For the rest of you, please keep drawing. Now, if you've finished your circles, you can follow me on Twitter if you like. Send a couple of Facebook messages, whatever you want to do. Keep drawing. Now, for those of you who have finished drawing, please take a look at what the people who are still drawing are doing. Now, please do this across the locations. Have a look around you. Please raise your hand if you've finished now. Okay, around half the people. Now, for those people who are still drawing, but not shading, please raise your hand if you're drawing but not shading is just filling out the circles like this. Raise your hand if you're drawing but not shading. A few. Now have a look at these people because they're special. They're special. Because what I've actually just given you is a psychological exercise. And what this psychological exercise is about is cognition. And your cognitive preferences when faced with a complex and ambiguous task. What did I not tell you about this exercise? I didn't tell you how long. What else did I not tell you? I didn't tell you how to do it. How many possibilities could you use? Well, how many different things could you use to fill up those circles? An exponential number. So actually what this exercise tests is your ability for joining the dots in your brain. Now at the one end of cognition, if you think of cognition as a scale, at one end of the cognitive scale is what is called divergent or linear thinking. This is not creative thinking at all. This is not imagination. This is where you go very narrowly towards one solution. So if you took one line and went zip, 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 not creative. If you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, A, B, C, D, E, F, shading all the circles the same, smiley face after smiley face after... Not creative. Have a look around you, folks. Now, of course, at the other end of the spectrum, okay, so divergent or linear thinking, non-creative thinking. At the other end of the spectrum, of course, is this idea of imagination, of non-linear thinking, of being open. So this exercise that I've given you, and in fact most of the exercise I'm going to give you today, I've also given to my children. And this was the exercise done by my daughter Hannah, who's now 13. When I first discovered it about 3.5 years ago, she was about 9 years old. Now what do you see with Hannah's circles? What you see with Hannah's circles is imagination. You see divergence, not converging to one idea, but you see breadth of imagination. Now what is fascinating about this is that if we look at the world of developmental psychology, what do we discover? From the age of 0 to 6, 98% of children are by default divergent creative thinkers. They are born creative. Okay? Now as Picasso, sorry, is anyone here from the USA? Okay, you're from the USA. So Picasso was this Spanish artist guy. Okay? And Picasso, he was very creative, and he once said that the problem is not to become creative. The problem is not to become an artist. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow. And this is exactly what we discover in the world of developmental psychology. Because while 98% of 6-year-olds are divergent thinkers, what do you think happens by the age of 12? We're at 98%. What do you think it declines to? Less than 40%. And then between the ages of 12 and 18, something even more frightening happens. That figure declines to around 10%. What about in a room like this? Now remember I asked you to raise your hand for those people who were still drawing? It was a handful of people. Because by the time we're 35 years old, what does the research show us? Only 2% of people still have this default ability for divergent or imaginative thinking. So the problem is not technology. The problem is not capital. The problem is the way we think. Okay? So what's my first lesson, or my first piece of wisdom to you actually? It is very simple. It's what is called metacognition. If we want to innovate, we have to be able to think about the way we are thinking. Now what the psychologists call this is metacognition. This ability to step back from ourselves and think about the way we're thinking. And that will enable us then to step into new domains. Okay? But it's not easy. In fact, it's very, very difficult. Now, I'm going to explain how difficult this is with a question. With a question. So please raise your hand. Now, also, across our 4 locations, please raise your hand if you shaved this morning. Please put your hand up if you shaved this morning. Ladies? No, no. I mean, I can't see Sweden, but I bet not many of the guys in Sweden shaved, you know, because they all think they're George Clooney. These Swedish guys, they like to be sexy, so they always have like the 3-day growth going, you know. But here in Denmark, raise your hands. Who shaved this morning? Very good. What brand did you use, sir? Gillette. Gillette? The best a man can get. Now, this is amazing, actually, because, of course, if you go back in history, this company has been around for more than a century. The original patent for that Gillette razor was 1904. And, in fact, this original product, this original design, was quite revolutionary because for 4,000 years before this, how did people shave? They shaved with a knife. They found cutthroat razors in the pyramids. Then this guy, King Gillette, came along with his innovation. But that innovation pretty much didn't change for about 70 years. It became a standard. Until this little French company called Bic came along in the 1970s and disrupted the industry. Now, Schick and Wilkinson saw, the competitors of Gillette, they almost went into bankruptcy. But Gillette innovated. And what they innovated with was this. It was a product. And I've got one. You see that? That's an original Gillette Atra from 1976. They innovated, and what they innovate with? A little click head and 2 blades. And this was an incredible innovation, an incredible global success for the company. So what did they do next? They kept innovating. And in fact, what they then did over the next 15 years was they developed the pinnacle of this 2-blade technology, which was the Gillette Sensor. This was a 2-blade, aluminium handled, molded, beautiful razor. You had one?
I have one.
It was
Still have one.
I can see you don't use it very often. It's George Clooney. think about this. This company's been innovating for 15 years, but now they want to get radical. So they launched this project called Project 2000. And the goal is to launch the next generation breakthrough. What do you think they could possibly do to better a 2-blade razor? What could they do, folks? 3. You people, you're brilliant. You're absolutely right. And in fact, they came to the market with this phenomenon. It was called the Mach 3. You see this? And this is actually, I've got the Platinum Mach 3. This was the limited edition version. There were only 6 million of these made. And I've got one. Can you hold that for me for a second? Okay, good. All right, so now you imagine your Wilkinson sword. The guys at Wilkinson Sword are going bananas because they're always the follower. So they get together an innovation tiger team. They go and benchmark. They go to Silicon Valley. They go to Apple. They knock themselves out with innovation. What do you think they could possibly do to beat a 3-blade razor? 4. You're brilliant, you people, yes. But not only 4, because now it's all about experience. It's all about not just functionality, it's about emotion. So they call it the 4. I mean, I'm Australian, we're linguistically handicapped, but I think this means 4 in some Latin language. I mean, wow. Okay, folks, now turn to the person next to you and tell them, what could they possibly do to beat 4 blades? Can we do that across the Nordics? Please turn to the person next to you and say, what could they do to beat 4 blades? Let's go. I'll give you 10 seconds. Let's go. Okay, folks. So what do you think they could do? What do you think? So someone here in Denmark said 5? You said 5? No, not 5. They came with 6. That's right. The Gillette Fusion. Now the question is, why? Why the 6 blades? Can you please raise your hand? Now again, this is across the Nordics. Can you please raise your hand if you are using the Mach 3 or the Quattro? Please raise your hand. Excellent. Very good. We'll see some people. Sir, you're using the Mach 3, sir? Can you come over here for a minute, please? Me? Yes, can you come over here for a second? I'm not sure we can get a close-up with the camera. Now again, across the Nordics, you want to take note of this. So you're using the Mach 3 right now, sir? You're using the Quattro. Yes. You see, now I have a Quattro. Now the problem with the Quattro is that it's got a very wide edge to hold the 4 blades in place. And if we look very closely, you have 3... Now, excuse me, madam, can you come over here a second? No, okay, right. It's okay. But during the coffee break, if you take your finger and just go like this, you will find there's the layers, correct? Yeah. Right? Round of applause, please, for our volunteer. You hang on to that for me. Right. So you see, this is all about experience, and in fact, what is the blade on the back for? The blade on the back is for those hard to reach places, and the sideburns. Did you know that? You didn't know that, did you? Did you want to know that? No. Okay. No. Okay. No. So look at that. Look at that. That's what I've just demonstrated to you is 1 century of innovation. That's 100 years of innovation. But my question to you, and again going back to Brian's talk earlier, is this innovation? Is this innovation? Because a couple of the words that Brian used were incremental. The words he used was permission-based. We don't take risks, we don't do things dangerous, because what are we aiming for? We're aiming for that cost reduction. We're aiming for that 2 or 3% of growth every year. And this, folks, in fact, is the biggest problem. It's not that technology has evolved. The problem is that we are stuck with industrial age mindset. Because the mindset that most of us have and have acquired in business over the last 10 or 20, in some cases 30 years, has been built around an industrial age business model. So what we actually need to do to really disrupt, to really innovate, is to break out of that. Now, not at the organizational level. Too many people stand on these stages and they talk about organizational transformation. They talk about strategy, evolution. No, it's about individual change. It's about you, actually. It's about you. So would you like the answer? Would you like the answer of how can you please, I thought Danish people were extrovert. I spoke to this Finnish guy and he said, you'll have no problem in Finland, in Denmark, they will laugh at your jokes. Seriously, is anyone, I mean, for the folks in Finland, don't get me wrong, I love going to Finland, you know. But I was on stage in Finland and nobody laughed at my jokes. And then I was very upset, and then during the coffee break, I spoke to this like Finnish guy, Antti, and I said, Antti, did you not like the joke? And do you know what he said? Jamie, I was laughing on the inside. I said, okay, I think I get it. Okay, so for the people here in Copenhagen, in Oslo, in Stockholm, and of course in Helsinki, would you like the answer to how to unleash your creativity? Yes. Thank you. But before I do that, let me show you the current generation of Gillette razor. Have you seen this one? This is like Frankenstein razor, you know? This is not the way that my wife took one look at that and she was like, oh my goodness, you know, what does that do? Can you hang on to that for me for a second? Thank you. Good, okay. So here's the answer. You ready? Now you need your piece of paper and you need your pencil, please. Please take your piece of paper and your pencil. And here's the answer. Are you ready? The answer is cake. And not the kind you buy in Amsterdam. So here's what I would like you to do. Now, in this case, the exercise has a time limit, and the time limit will be strictly enforced. It is 30 seconds. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to draw a cake. And then I want you to cut the cake 4 times. So you draw the cakes, you cut it 4 times, and your objective is to come up with a maximum number of pieces of cake. Are you ready? Your time starts now. Go. Draw your cakes, cut them, 30 seconds. Now, we're doing this across the region. $15 to go. Who's finished? Raise your hand if you're finished. Yep, a lot of people done already. 10 seconds. Please raise your hand if you're finished now. Good. Okay, please stop. Please put your pencils down. Now please raise your hand if you did a cake that looks like that. Please raise your hand. Pathetic. What have we been talking about? We've been talking for 15 minutes about creative thinking. That's the least creative cake you can imagine. What about this one? Did anyone do one like this? Equally bad. What about this one? Anyone do this one? Yes, come on. Offset cuts. Don't be too proud. Don't be too. This is the one that I did. When I got this exercise from a psychologist, I did that, and I felt really good. And then I showed it to her, and this lady, psychologist, she looked at me, and you know what she said? Loser. How about this one? 3-dimensional. Nah. Now here's the amazing thing. I gave this exercise to my 3 children when I discovered it a couple of years ago. Who do you think did it the best? Reese, who was 13, Hannah, who was 10, or Charlie, who was 8? Who did it the best? It was Charlie. It was the youngest one. Because he did something different to you. Now here's what I'd like everyone to do. Across the region, this is what I would like you to do. I would like you all to stand up now and turn to the people behind you, except for the people in the back row. That's a big confusion. Now, just stand up, talk to the people around you, and here's the question. What assumptions did you make about this exercise? Let's go. Everyone stand up, let's talk. What assumptions did you make? Yeah. Is the pace okay? Okay. Can you pass those around for me? Can you pass those around, please? Can you guys pass those around? Sure. Can you pass them around for me? Thank you. Hi. Can you guys pass those around? Can you pass them for me, please? Hi. Can you pass those around for me? Can you pass this chocolate for me? Can you pass it around to everybody, please? Thank you. Can you pass those around for me, please? Good. So, How's the pace going, guys? Is the pace okay?
Very,
Not too
good.
fast? Yeah, good.
Love it.
Chocolate for you. Some chocolate, guys. There you go. Some chocolate. There you go. Okay. Okay, folks. Now, please do not sit down. Please don't sit down. Please don't sit down. Don't sit down, please. Please don't sit. All right. So, what were some of the assumptions that were made? Now, what I heard, I went over to this corner. People said, well, we assumed the cake was round. What other assumptions did we make? The lines are straight. That everyone gets the same size piece. For most of us, actually. Now, actually, where do these circles come from? I spoke at the World Creativity Forum a couple of years ago, and I did this exercise with an audience of 3,000 people, and I collected the results. Those 4 outcomes represent 85% of the results that I collected from a very smart group of people. So don't be depressed. Don't be depressed, all right? But what do you see? Look at the top 3, 2-dimensional cakes, when we all know that cakes are 3-dimensional. So you made all these assumptions about the cake, but not only did you make assumptions about the cake, you made assumptions about the knife. What was the assumption about the knife? Yeah, it was straight blade, single blade. What about a multi-bladed knife or a laser? You see? So you were stuck. Now, not only did you make assumptions about the cake and the knife, you also made assumptions about the process, because when I said go, what did we see? You all acted as individuals. Now, I know, maybe this is unique to a Danish audience, but I looked at some guys over here, and one of the other guys looked at what he was doing, and he went like this. You see, because we know that if you want creativity, if you want innovation, that's about collaboration. It's about bringing minds together. You didn't collaborate. So from a creative perspective, you did almost everything wrong, although you're smart people. So here's the next question I'd like you now to talk about for about 3 minutes. What has life done to you to mess you up? Can you please do that? No, the question is, why did you make those assumptions? Why did you make those assumptions? Please talk about that. Let's go. What happened?
Yeah, we just talk about, I think we learn to learn in a business in a certain way. That's what you do in university.
So the individualistic, one right answer, absolutely. That's from education, right? Yeah. And remember I mentioned from 6 to 18, the biggest collapse?
Yeah.
What do we do between 6 and 18?
Yeah.
Great. How is the pace? Is it okay?
Yes. Sure.
Not too fast? Yeah, good. Okay.
That's where you agree.
How's the pace? Not too. Is it too fast? Is it okay?
No, this is great. It's great.
Okay.
It's good. I'm already thinking about how.
So
to
what happened, Jan?
tomorrow.
What happened? What happened to you, man?
I don't know. You're still in the mic. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well. Okay. Good. Okay, folks. Okay, can I please ask you to take a seat? Can you take a seat, please? Good, very good. Okay, now, the interesting thing is that when I gave this exercise to my little boy, Charlie, he was with a group of friends, 7 or 8-year-olds. They collaborated, and then they came to me, and what they essentially told me was that the answer was infinite. And actually, if you really think about it, I'll explain this in a second, but you can actually, if you think about it, create thousands. And that's what these little kids did. They came to me and they showed me that they'd created thousands of pieces of cake in less than a minute. Right? Now, why was that? Because they weren't stuck in the same assumptions as you, right? So why did we make these assumptions? Now let me tell you what the research, the theory tells us, and also some of the conversations that we had in these rooms. The first thing is education. Because the industrial age, industrial model came with an industrial age education system. where subjects are prioritized. And what is the least important subject in most education systems? Anything to do with creativity, art, dance, music. So it's no surprise, actually, if you look at that decline of creativity between 6 and 18, that it absolutely correlates with formal education. One right answer thinking, do it alone, formulaic approaches. Now, this is so anathema to the idea of creative thinking, of brainstorming, of divergence, of making mistakes. So education is there, okay? But have a look at this one. You know, top left. I bet the people in Sweden did that one. Every time I go to Sweden, they draw cakes like that. Now, why is that? They're socialist. Because in Sweden, everybody should get the same size piece. What about the top right one? That's the Norwegian cake, because they deserve a bigger piece. You know? So where does this also come from? It's not just education, it's experience. It's our life experience, and it can be our professional experience, our narrow functional orientation. Right? Now, what does this then translate into? Also the environment. You know, why else did most of us only draw one cake? Because of time pressure, right? Because you were under this intense time pressure, and with that pressure, you didn't think. When you're under intense time pressure, you default. But interestingly enough, most of you felt the pressure, but you didn't use the time, because actually I gave you 45 seconds. So you went for efficiency instead of creativity. And that's the environment that you find in most big companies, because that's the industrial age model. Efficiency before creativity, before experimentation. So we see this. Now, of course, what was the other reason? Somebody over here said, Jamie, you made me do it. Of course, because I went like this. And that's also about the environment, because what that is about is leadership. You know, do you have leaders who come to you and say, bring me your ideas? It's about leadership. Okay, last exercise for everyone across the region. I would like you to do this exercise. It's a new exercise. I tried it recently. Actually, it was at another Accenture event, but it was in Brussels. And it was for a room full of financial services executives. They hated it. But you're going to love it. Okay, so now the next exercise, you really must use paper and pen. And don't take a photograph. Don't draw an abstract, because what I'm going to give you now is just 2 minutes to do this. I would like you now to draw a picture of the person sitting next to you in lifelike detail. Let's go. Across the region, please draw the person sitting next to you. Let's go, guys. If you push back, they can draw you from either side. That's great. Who are you drawing? Great, great, very good, very good. Good? Good? Keep drawing. Come on, folks, keep going. You've got 1 minute to go. Please keep drawing. Very good. It's very small, but good. Keep drawing, folks. Please keep drawing. You've got not so long to go, so please keep drawing, because I would really, really like you to finish this picture. Who is that? Okay, so you really should be starting to finish up your picture now. The eyebrows, the nose, the mouth. Okay, now is what I would like you to do. Now what I'd like to do is, can you please show the person your picture? Let's go. Please show the people your pictures. Can I have a look at this? Can I borrow it? Is that okay? I'm going to get a close-up of this one with you, okay? Okay, folks. Okay, now, can I please have you back in the room? Now, oh, sorry. Before I explain this in a second, I forgot to give you the answer to the cake exercise. I'm sorry. What's the answer to the cake? What did the little kids do? Well, actually, the little kids did a round cake, but they said, what about if you do a zigzag cut? You see? Because if you do a zigzag cut, that's one cut. And then what one of the other little kids had done was a spiral. Do you understand? So if you overlay these zigzags and spirals, you get an exponential increase in performance. And in fact, that's what Brian was talking about. With these companies like Uber and Facebook and Google, they're not interested in going from 6 pieces of cake to 9 pieces of cake. They're looking for exponential. Okay, but that's rethinking the tools. All right, now, let's go to our pictures. Can you just zoom in on this for a second? Because I would like to show you this. Can we please just have this one on the screen? Can we get it on up here? Yeah, have a look at that. Now, if I went out here into the streets of Copenhagen and said, how old was the person who drew that picture? What do you think they'd say? What do you think? About 9? Yeah? Now, of course, we know why, right? We know why, because I mentioned developmental psychology. Most adults have the drawing ability of an 8 to 9-year-old because that's when you're told it's never going to get you a good job. All right? So, now what has this got to do with digital, for example? This has a lot to do with digital. Because if drawing becomes essential to your job, what do you need to do? What would you need to do? You would need to get better. You would need to practice. It's the same with artificial intelligence, big data, mobility, social. We need to get better. And how do we do that? We do that by engaging in lifelong learning. We have to embrace that, okay? But there's something else at play here. It's a beautiful, I don't want to embarrass anyone. It's a beautiful picture, okay? It's really beautiful. But there's something else at play because, you know, when I gave this exercise to this group of, you know, financial services people in Bazaar, in Brussels, this big event venue, some of them got angry. There was this guy, and I'm not going to say which country he was from, but it was a very big country south of Belgium. And this guy, he was really angry, and I went to him and I said, Philippe, you know, come on, man, draw the picture. He looked at me and he said, no. I said, dude, you know, come on, draw the picture, you know. I went away. I went to this other guy. He was from another very big country, kind of to the east of Belgium. I looked at this guy. I said, come on, Jörg, draw the picture. The guy looked at me and he said, I came to learn, not to have fun. It's like, what the heck, you know? Then I went back to Philippe and I said, Philippe, please draw the picture. Do you know what he did? He looked at me and said, he said, get lost. Why? Why? Now, the issue here actually is very important because the issue is ego. If you're in an organization with people with big egos, they will never embrace this transformational change because they're afraid. And what are they afraid of? They're afraid to say, I don't know. So in a world of disruption, as a leader, you have to be willing to issue a statement of ignorance. You have to be willing to say, I don't know. And what's the other thing here? The other thing actually is having fun. Because what does the research show us? There's a whole field of research called gelotology, and gelotology is the study of laughter and humor upon the brain. And what do we know? Humor reduces physical and cognitive tension. And that puts us in a better place, actually, when it comes to ideation and brainstorming, a critical component of innovation. So if you go around a company and there's a bunch of stiffs walking around and there's no humor, you're not going to get a lot of creativity. And here's the last thing.
Oxygen, that's very bad for brain.
across the regions. This is Dr. Nakamatsu. Dr. Nakamatsu is a Japanese guy, and he's one of the world's most productive inventors. He has more than 2,000 patents to his name, double the number of Edison. He's working on a microchip design. Isn't this amazing? Now, the question for you is, what are you doing and where are you when you get your best ideas? Guess what the research suggests? It's not at work. It's not at work. And when I ask this question around the world, what do people actually tell me? What people tell me is they tell me about this stuff. Yeah? I mean, that's me. I'm a cyclist. And I returned to competitive cycling 6 years ago. I've had the best ideas of my life in that 6-year period. Now, I thought at first that was because I'm taking time. And this is important, by the way. You need to take time for creativity. When I gave you the cake exercise, when you're under intense pressure, you can't be creative. You need to take time. So I thought, I'm riding my bike, I'm giving myself time. But no, there's something else at play. Because when I'm out riding my bike, or when you're in the gym, or you're taking a run, or you're doing exercise, your body is releasing dopamine. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It fires those neurons. It's the creativity chemical in your body. So the best people in your companies are not those who work through their lunch breaks. They're those who go for a run, take a swim, who exercise. Okay? Now, it is okay, however, because if you don't like exercise, what's the other great way to release dopamine? Good Belgian chocolate. Now, I shared some of that with you in this room. I wish I could have done that across the region. Chocolate has a chemical called tyrosine. Tyrosine is nature's dopamine booster. It helps your body to release dopamine. Now, you're not going to become a genius by eating a little bit of chocolate, but it will give you that boost of dopamine that you need. Now, of course, we all know what's the other great way to boost dopamine? The old boom boom. Yeah. Sex. And actually, this Norwegian guy, he asked me, should it be with somebody else? I don't know. I said, whatever makes you happy, you know, whatever makes you happy, Joachim. Okay, so, you know, so that's important, right? Because, you know, you do the old boom boom, you get the big rush of dopamine, and it's fabulous. Now, what's the only problem? Probably in the Nordics as well. Most people do this at night. It's a complete waste of good dopamine. I've been talking to my friends at Accenture. I said, you guys need to do much more of this during the daytime. You need to create places, you know, anyway. Well, that's a whole other issue, okay? So we talk about disruption. Disruption. We talk about organizations. We talk about strategies. No, disruption is actually about disrupting ourselves. And what it is really about is having this ability to embrace our creative potential. And it's not complex. You know, it's about thinking about the way you're thinking. It's about questioning your education, you know, your experience in your environment. And of course, what else it is about? It's about having a lot of sex. So thank you very much. Thank you.